Before getting to the question session, we would like to turn the floor to CNSC staff for their presentation is outlined in CMD 17M50. I understand that Ms. Tadros will make the presentation. Over to you.
Thank you and good morning, Mr. President, members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Heidi Tadros. I am the Director General of the Directorate of Nuclear Cycle and Facilities Regulation. With me today, on my left, is Ms. Julie Meckie, Senior Project Officer of the Wastes and Decommissioning Division. On her left, Dr. Julie Brown, Geoscience Assessment Officer of the Environmental Risk Assessment Division. And behind us, in the second row, Ms. Corinne Glenn, Director of the Waste and Decommissioning Division, and Ms. Kim Noble, Team Leader, Aboriginal Consultation and Participant Funding. We are also joined by other CNSC specialists who are familiar with this file. The objective of CNSC staff's presentation today is to provide Commission members with an update on CNSC staff's early involvement in the initiative for a deep geological repository for Canada's used nuclear fuel. Specifically, we will highlight staff's pre-licensing activities, staff's international and research activities, as well as the outreach activities, including Indigenous engagement. I'll now turn the present over to Ms. Julie Meckie to walk through the details.
Thank you. Good morning, my name is Julie Meckie. This slide shows the previous times that CNSC staff have presented to the Commission regarding CNSC's early involvement in the NWMO's APM approach. CNSC last updated the Commission in December of 2016 as part of the 2015 Regulatory Oversight Report for Waste Management, Storage, and Processing in Canada, which is filed as CMD 16-M50. The following is background information and has already been presented in detail by NWMO staff, so I will not repeat the slide again. This slide provides the stages of the CNSC licensing for a Class 1 nuclear facility and will put into context the stage of the NWMO's APM approach. As shown on the slide, the APM approach is currently at Phase 0, pre-licensing phase, where no license application has been submitted to the CNSC. As discussed previously, and according to NWMO's proposed schedule, the earliest an application would be submitted is in 2028. Although a license application has not been submitted, early engagement of the CNSC can provide valuable input at this point in the process to the future applicant, to the public, and Indigenous groups. This approach is in line with international consensus that the active, independent involvement of a knowledgeable, competent regulator involved early in the process is important. The objectives of the pre-licensing involvement of the CNSC are to build independent in-house knowledge, to be prepared for a review of the future license application. This includes conducting our own independent research, initiate a dialogue with the future applicant, the NWMO, provide information on our role as the regulator to interested communities, First Nation, and Métis communities, provide guidance on regulatory requirements, focus on key safety aspects, maximize national and international collaboration, and finally, review key research publication from the future applicant, the NWMO. To formalize the early involvement with the NWMO prior to submission of a license, there's a service arrangement between the NWMO and CNSC. This is currently the second service arrangement with the NWMO and is in effect until March 31st, 2019. Under the service arrangement, CNSC staff provide regulatory guidance prior to submission of a license. For example, CNSC staff have conducted pre-licensing reviews of conceptual designs. In addition, the service agreement is posted on the CNSC website. As part of the service arrangement, CNSC staff conduct outreach activities to provide information on CNSC's role as the independent nuclear regulator. At these outreach activities, staff share knowledge on the science and research being used in regulatory decision-making. The following slides illustrate the in-house expertise that CNSC currently have who are contributing to CNSC's work being conducted under the service arrangement. CNSC staff have professional and technical staff in various disciplines such as project management, licensing, environmental protection, geoscience, corrosion, radiation protection, management system, packaging and transportation, emergency preparedness, security, safeguards, and finally, communication and media relations. Team members are involved in outreach activities, technical pre-licensing reviews, conducting and coordinating research, and contributing to the development of international guidance documents. As the APM approach moves forwards, the roles of these specialists will expand to ensure CNSC staff is ready to review a future application. Now I will discuss CNSC's international and research activities which are being done in order to prepare for a future review of a license application. First, CNSC's research on deep geological repositories. Started in 1978, CNSC's independent DGR research is one of the key outputs into CNSC research strategy on waste management. A comprehensive list of CNSC research papers is available on our website. In addition, there is a detailed interactive timeline outlining the decades of research on the science behind the disposal of radioactive waste. Examples include mathematical modeling on the impacts of glaciation on sedimentary rock, and second, experimental and theoretical studies on the long-term performance of bentonite seals, and this is done in collaboration with the French technical support organization, the IRSN. Second, CNSC staff participate in international projects to maintain knowledge and competence by keeping up to date with international state-of-the-art science, practices, and regulations. These collaborations are one way to share knowledge and to pool resources on a global scale. For example, staff are involved in the International Atomic Energy Agency's groups and also the European Sustainable Network of Independent Technical Expertise, or CITEX, in relation to radioactive waste disposal. This is a group of regulators and technical support organizations, and CNSC was invited to join by the IRSN. Finally, staff continue to share and exchange information with other regulators. An example of this is CNSC have established a Deep Geological Regulators Forum, or DGRRF, which includes regulators from Finland, France, Sweden, Switzerland, and the United States. The group is to learn more about their DGR licensing process. CNSC staff have hosted the first workshop, which occurred in Ottawa of March 2016, and recently staff participated in the second workshop, which was hosted by the Swedish nuclear regulator in Gimo, Sweden in September of 2017. Through these meetings, staff have received confirmation that for the most part, our early activities are in line with what other regulators did or are doing in the pre-licensing phase. Perspectives on how those regulators would improve the process have been beneficial to hear and inform staff in our daily work in this pre-licensing stage, but also for future stages. There are also areas where CNSC has been able to share our strengths, such as our broad approach to conducting outreach activities, our comprehensive website, specifically outreach to youth, public hearing process, and our participant funding program, and our approach to Indigenous engagement. Another way CNSC staff are seeking advice is through CNSC's Independent Advisory Group, or the IAG. The IAG was founded in 2015 to provide objective, independent advice to staff on the geoscience aspects of the DGR initiative for the long-term management of Canada's used nuclear fuel. The IAG consists of 6 Canadian geoscientists, experts from 5 Canadian universities, and 1 consultant. IAG members are all independent researchers at Canadian universities and internationally recognized experts in their respective disciplines with long histories of scientific excellence. Examples of areas include hydrology, groundwater flow and contaminant transport, isotope geochemistry, tectonics and the geology of the Canadian Shield, engineering material and structural material, and also international experience in developing relevant safety guides and standards. Activities of the IAG include reviewing the NWMO's documents related to the research and development program, including NWMO technical reports, attend NWMO's annual geoscience seminar, and finally, the review of CNSC's independent research program on DGRs. CNSC staff continue to conduct outreach activities. At this early stage, before an application has been submitted, our outreach activities serve to explain our regulatory role as the independent nuclear regulator and to build relationships. At the request of community representatives, CNSC staff conduct outreach activities. As part of the planning, CNSC staff discuss with community representatives on the format of the outreach activity and if there are specific topics of interest. For example, radiation protection or Indigenous engagement. Regarding the format, CNSC can host a day-long meeting in Ottawa, present in the community, and these meetings are open to the public. Also, CNSC can host a CNSC open house in the community, and open houses are informal gatherings where posters set up to provide information, and members of the public, First Nation, Métis communities can ask questions to CNSC staff on a one-on-one setting. CNSC staff have also met with First Nation and Métis communities, and I'll discuss that more in the next slide. Furthermore, staff have also received outreach requests from neighboring communities. Since May of 2010, staff have conducted 54 meetings with communities and 16 CNSC open houses. CNSC staff continue to build and expand these relationships. Regarding Indigenous groups, CNSC staff are working on developing a structured, transparent, formalized approach to ongoing engagement with Indigenous communities. Building relationships with First Nation and Métis communities who may have an interest in learning more about the initiative for a DGR for Canada's nuclear fuel is a priority to the CNSC. As building strong relationships based on trust and mutual respect takes time, CNSC staff have begun to do this early in the pre-licensing phase. To date, if an outreach event is planned in a given area, the CNSC has reached out directly to nearby First Nation and Métis communities to let those communities know that an independent nuclear regulator exists and is available to meet and to provide communities with information about the CNSC and its regulatory role. In our meetings, staff also provide CNSC published document RegDoc 3.2.2, Aboriginal Engagement, which sets out requirements and guidance for license applicants whose proposed project may raise the Crown's duty to consult to help understand the role of the license applicant. The following is a list of outreach activities that CNSC staff conducted from April 1st, 2016 to October 30th of 2017. Highlights include CNSC Open House in Hornpain, Ontario, where a local school attended. CNSC staff provided information on radiation protection and also explained how we protect the environment. CNSC staff were invited to present at the Wabigoon Lake Ojibwe First Nation Gathering and Learning Workshop to explain our role and our approach to Aboriginal engagement and consultation. Staff were also invited to present at the Métis Nation of Ontario pre-annual General Assembly meeting. And finally, not specifically included in this slide, but in connection with CNSC open houses, staff have also reached out to local schools in Elliott Lake and Blind River to provide information on the fundamentals of radiation protection. The following are CNSC staff key messages when we're conducting outreach. First, CNSC is the independent regulator. No license application, and it's early in the process. CNSC does not promote the APM project or nuclear energy. And finally, CNSC is not responsible for national energy policy. The following are examples of common topics raised during outreach activities. First, explaining the role of the CNSC licensing process, and how the public, First Nation, and Métis communities can participate. Questions on how CNSC conducts safety checks by inspections and enforcement, and also questions on the independence of the Commission. Second, the importance of clarifying roles. For example, explaining that the CNSC is the independent regulator, and that we are not the NWMO, and that we are not industry. In order for members of the public to have an understanding of radiation, CNSC staff explain what radiation is and how workers are protected. Members of the public will ask about repository safety. For example, what if something goes wrong, and how will safety be assured? They will also ask about benchmarking, specifically what are other countries doing, and how does Canada align? Finally, there are questions on the transportation of used nuclear fuel, emergency preparedness, and security. The following are examples of what we have learned from talking to communities for the past 7 years. Overall, feedback has been positive. People are happy to hear that there is an independent nuclear regulator who is looking after safety, and that CNSC is here for the entire life cycle of a DGR facility. They like to know that if a license is issued, there are safety checks and rules that need to be followed. The benefit of being involved early is that CNSC can clarify our role as Canada's independent nuclear regulator, and that we are not the NWMO. Staff have also found it helpful to explain the science and how CNSC collaborate on international research that is being performed in order to make sound regulatory decisions. The importance of starting early to establish relations with people in communities, First Nation, and Métis communities, as it takes time to build relationships. CNSC staff have received feedback that the public, Indigenous communities, that they appreciate meeting CNSC subject matter experts, such as the geologist, a CNSC inspector, radiation protection specialist. For example, a CNSC inspector can explain firsthand how they conduct safety checks and enforcement tools. They also like to hear that CNSC inspectors can conduct unannounced inspections. Finally, CNSC staff, we get to learn about the communities. To assist the public, CNSC staff have included information on talking to communities on our external website. The site will be updated as the APM approach proceeds. There is information on CNSC's regulatory role and early involvement in the APM approach, community meetings with the CNSC, regulating Canada's geological repositories, including a fact sheet, CNSC research on geological repositories, and CNSC interactive timeline outlining the decades of research on the science behind the disposal of radioactive waste. Thank you. Now I'll turn it over to Ms. Tandos.
Thank you. So on this slide, we've identified a few next steps for CNSC staff with regards to this project. We plan to update the Commission in 2020, as this will align with the next anticipated triennial report on activities by the NWMO. We plan to continue the independent research programs, international collaboration, and regulatory exchange and site visits. This includes sharing regulatory operational experience, or OPEX. We also continue on international benchmarking. For example, CNSC early involvement in the APM approach will be internationally peer-reviewed. This will occur at the next review meeting of the Joint Convention on the Safety of Spent Fuel Management, and on the safety of radioactive waste management in May of 2018. We will continue outreach and engagement activities in the communities impacted, and we will also continue to provide regulatory guidance, such as conducting pre-licensing reviews when requested by the NWMO. To conclude, early involvement of the regulator in DGR initiatives is international best practice. Communities have requested CNSC staff help in understanding how the CNSC regulates the nuclear sector and how the public can get involved if an application were submitted in the future. CNSC staff are available to meet with communities, First Nations, and Métis communities, and will continue to build and expand these relationships in a formalized, structured approach. CNSC staff participation in international projects allows best use of resources and benchmarking by keeping up to date with state-of-the-art science, practices, and regulations. This concludes our presentation. We are available for any questions the commissions may have.
Okay, thank you.